Chapter 237. Her hand was as white as jade without the slightest blemish. It was so dazzling in the firelight of the night. Ning Chen was an extremely intelligent person. After being stunned for a moment, he quickly reacted. "Be careful, it's hot." Ning Chen concealed his astonished expression without leaving a trace. He handed over the roasted fish and warned. In reality, he had only roasted this fish because he thought of little Mingyue. However, since Li Yuwei had misunderstood, there was no need to point it out. He did not understand a woman's thoughts, but he was not an idiot. This misunderstanding could not be explained. Li Yuwei ate the fish in small bites. She was elegant and refined, very pleasing to the eye. Although this eldest princess' reputation was not good, she had received strict court etiquette training since she was young. No one could find any fault with her behavior. Ning Chen looked at her and thought of little Mingyue. He found it funny. The little girl was also born as a princess and later became an emperor. However, when she ate, she was like a little tiger, afraid that others would steal her food. "It's delicious." Li Yuwei revealed a smile. It was less charming and more realistic. She did not think that Ning Chen would have such a skill. She had thought that he was just a block of wood. Ning Chen smiled and did not say anything. Back then, in order to let little Mingyue eat, he had worried a lot. This was all from training. "Oh right, is there a river nearby? How come I don't hear the sound of flowing water?" Li Yuwei asked curiously. "A very small river." Ning Chen replied. "Oh." Li Yuwei nodded and continued to focus on eating the fish in her hand. She did not ask any more questions. The moonlight was slightly cool and a light breeze rustled. The light of the fire and the fragrance of the fish spread out. In the distance, pairs of green eyes appeared and stared at the two people beside the carriage. Their greedy wolf eyes continuously jumped. "Awoo!" The howls of the wolves rose and fell, coming from all directions. Even from far away, one could feel the gloomy and cold aura that made one's hair stand on end. In front of the carriage, the horse immediately became restless. It kept moving around nervously. Ning Chen stood up and gently stroked the horse's back, gradually calming it down. Speaking of which, this was already the second time he had encountered a pack of wolves. His luck was really bad. Seeing the dark mass of figures in the distance, Li Yuwei's eyes flashed with worry. She warned, "Be careful." No matter what the former was hiding, his 5th grade natal realm cultivation could not be faked. "Don't worry, I can protect myself," Ning Chen replied. The wrapped strips of cloth dispersed. Zhiga and Qingma appeared. The two swords danced side by side. Li Yuwei frowned when she saw the dark golden sword in the former's hand. The Palace Lord of the Cherishing Flower Palace and Venerable Dream of the 9 Clouds Mountain were among the few powerhouses of the 4 extremes. They could be said to be the strongest people in the world besides the 2 powerhouses of the Sacred Land and the Hall of Eternal Life. This time, even people from these 2 sects had come, and 2 of them were Xiantian cultivators. To her, this wasn't good news. Ning Chen looked at the 3 of them and narrowed his eyes slightly. He wasn't worried about the other 2. Instead, he was more wary of Worryless. This woman could be said to be one of the strongest people in the world. Once she got serious, she would definitely be very terrifying. In many ancient books, the growth of the Great Path physique was accompanied by an absolutely invincible battle record. They were born with the ability to control the power of heaven and earth. To a certain extent, they were like gods living in the human world. The only good news was that his relationship with Worryless wasn't bad. But it was only good. On the street, Worryless felt the gaze from afar. She turned around and smiled gently. Her smile was peaceful and made people feel relaxed and happy. Seeing this smile, Ning Chen sighed inwardly. This was what he was worried about. As long as they were in this world, the perception of the Great Path physique was unparalleled. "You know people from the Cherishing Flower Palace?" Li Yue saw that Ning Chen had been paying attention to the two people from the Cherishing Flower Palace. She couldn't help but ask curiously. Yes. Ning Chen nodded. He didn't deny it. Li Yue's expression was strange, but she quickly understood. She had almost forgotten that he had a powerful Xiantian master. It wouldn't be strange even if he had seen venerables from some large sections. Be careful of that green-clothed woman, warned Ning Chen. Li Yue was surprised. She didn't understand what he meant. If he said to be careful of the Cherishing Flower Palace, she could understand. After all, a Xiantian cultivator had come. But to be careful of that green-clothed woman was too strange. A disciple of the Cherishing Flower Palace who was at most at the 6th rank. Even if she was like Ning Chen beside her, whose martial path was extraordinary, she still couldn't escape the Hotian realm. She wasn't much of a threat to her. However, since Ning Chen had warned her, she just had to be careful. For days later, in Cloud Cry City, almost all the powers that should have come had arrived. In the depths of the Sudden Thunder Imperial Palace, a powerful aura rose up. In the next moment, it appeared in Xianling Pavilion. Let's go and take a look, said Ning Chen. Yes. Li Yue nodded. Then they walked towards Xianling Pavilion. Within Xianling Pavilion, in the private rooms, the people from the various powers were gathered. Through the gauze curtains, they looked at the rippling mirror in front of them. Their expressions were grave. If someone hadn't discovered it, it might still be a place that no one knew about. In Feng's Perch Mountain, other than the phoenix, there were also innate level giant beasts that were extremely powerful. This was also the reason why innate level experts in the world were unwilling to set foot there. Compared to ordinary people, inborn experts cherished their lives even more. Very few people were willing to take the risk for such dangerous things. Therefore, when the Imperial Consecrator of Xianling Pavilion stated the conditions, many people gave up this opportunity, including 9 Cloud Mountain Sword Venerable. The Zun cultivators of the continent of the 9 clouds were all at the peak of their lives. Even though the blazing sun iron and the other treasures were tempting, they didn't want to risk their lives for it. Following the departure of the 9 Heaven Sword Sovereign, many others left one after another, including a few powerful inborn experts. A hint of regret flashed across the eyes of the Xianling Pavilion's Imperial Consecrator. He had painstakingly collected the treasures of heaven and earth in order to attract these strong practitioners. Fengqi Mountain was not so easy to enter. The more people there were, the more chances there were. However, there were still many people who stayed in the end. Among them was Hua Xian from the Cherishing Flower Palace. Yi Wanhong also hesitated for a moment, but when she thought of her teacher, the previous palace lord of the Cherishing Flower Palace, who also didn't have much lifespan left, she chose to stay. Wang Yu naturally stayed as well. Her gaze peered through the gauze curtain at the box in the distance. A faint smile hung on her beautiful face. Ning Chen returned a smile, but he was a little surprised. He didn't expect the Cherishing Flower Palace to stay in the end. This was the scene he didn't want to see the most. He definitely had to fight for the phoenix blood, or he could choose to form an alliance with Wang Yu. As for how to split the spoils after obtaining the phoenix blood, they could discuss it properly. Of course, if they couldn't come to an agreement, it wouldn't be too late to fight then. Thinking of this, Ning Chen looked at the beautiful figure in the distance and transmitted his voice, "Wang Yu, why don't we form an alliance and get the phoenix blood first?" Wang Yu didn't answer, but only smiled. She pointed at the venerable of the Cherishing Flower Palace beside her. Her meaning was obvious, "I can't make the decision." Ning Chen was speechless. If he dared to reveal his identity, he wouldn't have to be so careful. Since they couldn't form an alliance, Ning Chen didn't force it. When the time came, who knew what would happen? He would just play it by ear. Half a day later, the people of the various factions left Cloud Cry City one after another, rushing towards the northwest. Although Phoenix Perch Mountain was a forbidden area of the 4 extremities, people would die for wealth, and birds would die for food. The natural treasures provided by the Xianling Pavilion were attractive enough, causing many people to want to take the risk. After all, no one had truly entered Phoenix Perch Mountain. All of their knowledge came from ancient records and rumors. Li Yue stayed in Cloud Cry City as she had other important matters to attend to. The two of them could only temporarily separate and complete their own missions. Ning Chen didn't have any objections. He left alone, feeling much more relaxed. However, Ning Chen wasn't in a hurry. He followed behind the various factions at a leisurely pace, waiting to enter with everyone else. As long as it was an unknown place, there would always be strange things. He had already suffered a lot, and this time, he was determined not to be the first one to stand out. He had already seen Tao Tai and Jiu Ying. Even if a legendary phoenix really appeared this time, it wouldn't be strange. Phoenix Perch Mountain was located in the inner part of the 100,000 mountain range between the western and southern borders. Of course, the 100,000 mountain range was just an empty name. No one had really counted how many mountains there were. The various factions were all on guard against each other. When they were rushing, they would also intentionally avoid each other to prevent being stabbed in the back. The factions that had innate rancors would have more confidence. Although Phoenix Perch Mountain was dangerous, as long as they didn't encounter monsters that were too strong, it shouldn't be a problem for them to protect themselves. The crowd crossed one mountain after another. The lush mountain range seemed to have no end. No matter where they walked, there would always be a new mountain waiting for them. Yi Wanhong and the other innate rancors obviously had the same thoughts as Ning Chen. They walked at a leisurely pace, waiting to enter with everyone else. 10 days later, after the crowd had crossed the last mountain, they finally saw a different scenery. The scene in front of them was a scene of falling maple leaves and red all over the mountain. It was almost exactly the same as the legendary Phoenix Perch Mountain. Ning Chen leisurely followed behind the crowd, especially far away from Daylily. He didn't want to expose his every move to others. After resting for half a day, the various factions tacitly entered the mountain at the same time. They still maintained a certain distance from each other and moved forward separately. The falling maple leaves dyed the entire Phoenix Perch Mountain red. As the crowd walked, they gradually realized that the distance they had deliberately maintained with others had unknowingly increased. Several innate rancors also realized that something was wrong. This endless maple forest was like a natural maze. Chapter 239. The four Khanate experts were shocked and they saw the strange bird fall to the ground. They were puzzled and did not understand what had happened. Yi Wanhong did not know either. Even though she was beside Worryless, she did not sense anything out of the ordinary. Not far from where the strange bird fell, Ning Chen was stunned for a moment. He quickly guessed what had happened and could not help but feel even more shocked. He did not sense anything out of the ordinary just now. He only saw the strange bird fall directly from the sky. He had only read about the records of Taoism physique in ancient books. Seeing it with his own eyes today was really unbelievable. In the southwest, another strange bird cried anxiously and flew quickly. However, just as it was about to approach, its body was directly sealed by an irresistible force and it could not move at all. Below the maple forest, due to the presence of the 5 Khanate experts, the beast tide quickly retreated. Except for the few disciples who were swallowed by the 2 strange birds, the rest of the people did not suffer many casualties. Worryless waved its hand and dispersed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth that was pressing on the 2 strange birds. After 2 frightened cries, the 2 strange birds immediately flapped their wings and flew away, not daring to stay for a second longer. Not far from the 2 strange birds, Ning Chen had been carefully watching. Finally, he noticed a trace of spiritual chi fluctuation at this moment. It was very weak. If one did not sense it carefully, it would be difficult to detect. The 5 Xiantian lords had also guessed that there was an expert helping them in the dark. While they were shocked, they couldn't help but feel a little fearful. For someone to be able to attack them without them noticing, it meant that the person's cultivation was either much higher than theirs, or he had some kind of special skill. No one guessed that it was a Taoism physique because it was too far away. The last time a Taoism physique appeared in the four extremes was thousands of years ago. The crowd continued to walk deeper into Fengqi Mountain. They were even more careful as they walked. Fengqi Mountain was more dangerous than they had imagined. They had only entered for a short while and they had already encountered big trouble. There was no telling what would happen inside. After walking for a long time, the sky gradually darkened. The sun set and the moon rose. The crowd was about to face their first night in Fengqi Mountain. The 5 Khanate experts were also fully focused. They knew very well that in such an unknown place, night was the most dangerous time. As the bonfire rose, the scorching flames danced in the dark night, adding some confidence to the people who had been nervous all day. Even if their Xiantian conditions were not as good as these giant beasts, they still had a big advantage after adapting with their cultivation and divine weapons. However, the disciples with weaker cultivation were not so lucky. The Xiantian experts could not help in time every time. By the time the group reached the deepest part of Feng's Perch Mountain, the number of people had decreased by more than half. Ning Chen walked behind the group. He did not encounter any trouble along the way and arrived at the destination smoothly. There were no more maple trees in a radius of 3,000 feet in front of them. On the lush grass, 3 towering sycamore trees appeared in front of everyone. They formed a line horizontally and looked very majestic. On the sycamore tree in the middle, a red divine bird lay quietly on the tree. Its perfect body and dazzling fiery red tail feathers all indicated the identity of its owner. A faint flame burned around the phoenix. It was as bright as blood, but the sycamore tree was not affected at all. It was not damaged at all. Elegant, noble, and perfect. This was everyone's first impression. The phoenix was the creator's favorite. It was perfect and deserved almost all the praise in the world. Even in myths and legends, it was an existence that was on par with the gods. The 5 Xiantian experts looked at the unusually quiet phoenix on the sycamore tree. At this moment, they were a little hesitant. The phoenix was equally famous for its elegance and strength. This phoenix looked calm now, but who knew how terrifying it would be once it felt threatened. Just as the 5 of them were hesitating, the 3 peak rank 9 experts quietly retreated into the maple forest. They circled behind the phoenix's line of sight and were ready to take a gamble. They knew very well that once the 5 Xiantian experts took action, they would have no chance. It was better to take action now and escape immediately after obtaining the phoenix blood. In this unknown Feng's Perch Mountain, even Xiantian experts might not be able to catch up with a peak rank 9 expert if they wanted to escape. 10,000 feet away from the sycamore tree, the 5 of them were still thinking about how to deal with it. Suddenly, 3 rays of sword light lit up the sky and rushed toward the phoenix on the sycamore tree. At this moment, the 5 of them changed their expressions. They knew that they were in trouble. Sure enough, the phoenix's eyes, which were calm and peaceful just a moment ago, suddenly flashed with a trace of hostility. The next moment, a phoenix cry resounded through the world. The phoenix spread its wings and a sea of fire lit up the sky. The terrifying flames burned the sky and boiled the sea. Before the 3 figures could get close, they were surrounded by the sea of fire and turned into ashes in a painful struggle. The infuriated phoenix displayed unparalleled strength and instantly killed 3 peak rank 9 powerhouses, shocking the 5 innate stage powerhouses. Retreat. Without any hesitation, the 5 of them quickly retreated with their disciples, temporarily avoiding the phoenix's sharp edge. However, how could a human Xiantian expert compare with a phoenix's speed? Yi Wanhong had not escaped far with Daylily when the phoenix's cry sounded behind them. Daylily sighed softly when she saw this. She broke free from Yi Wanhong's hand and stood in the void. Her blue and green dress fluttered. She raised her delicate hand and in an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around her gathered crazily, forming a huge cage to trap the angry phoenix. Everyone was shocked, including Yi Wanhong. No one would have thought that this gentle and delicate woman was actually the Xiantian expert who had secretly attacked. If this continued, he would definitely not be able to escape. Since this phoenix was so obsessed with the aura of the phoenix blood on him, then he would give the immortal hall a big gift. Above the four extremes, the chase became more and more intense. The phoenix's speed was astonishing. Ning Chen was caught several times and was surrounded by danger. He relied on Zhiga to block it and barely managed to pull away. The sky was getting darker and darker. The sun was setting in the west and gradually dimming. One man and one phoenix chased after half of the four extremes. Everywhere they passed, half of the sky burned. It was a spectacular sight. No one knew what was happening. With the eyes of mortals, they could only see the flames flashing across the sky and nothing else. When some of the innate rankers saw the flowing light at the end of the sky, their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. They clearly saw the phoenix that only appeared in legends. Could it be that the rumors of Fengqi Mountain were all true? Black stone, black wood, black soil. In a quiet place, a forbidden palace stood on the ground. It was majestic and heavy. Around it, ancient wood and black stone formed a city. Countless strong cultivators guarded it. For thousands of years, no one dared to enter. The Immortal Hall was one of the oldest inheritances in the world. Its history was so long that it could not be traced. It was as if the Immortal Hall existed as long as there were records. On this day, the phoenix cried out in the sky and flew towards the most mysterious inheritance in the world. In front of him, white clothes flashed past and rushed into the silent place. After landing, Ning Chen did not stop and directly flew towards the immortal city. In front of the Immortal Hall, 18 iron chains appeared from the void in the sky and were tightly tied to the floating altar. The iron chains were in the sky and there was no end in sight. It was very eye-catching and shocking. It was said that in ancient times, the blood of gods was shed here. Therefore, it was called the Parish God Platform. The legend was too vague to be verified. However, the miracle of the 18 iron chains was real. No one knew where it came from. Below the Parish God Platform, there was still a thick white fog. It was impossible to see what was inside. Even the moonlight was blocked outside. It was extremely mysterious. This white fog would only disappear for a short period of time at midnight and noon every day. It would only last for a quarter of an hour before it would be covered by the fog again. The coldness of the night was even more obvious in front of the Immortal Hall. The silence and coldness of the ancient times were the eternal theme. At this moment, under the white fog, the phoenix cried out. After tens of thousands of years, it still resisted day after day and never gave in. When midnight arrived, the white fog dispersed. Below, a huge pool appeared. The pool water was light red and emitted a strong vitality. The immortal pool was the place where the Immortal Hall trapped the phoenix. Every drop of the pool water contained the blood of the phoenix at the bottom of the pool. When the pool water turned completely red, it would condense into a complete drop of phoenix blood. When midnight was about to pass, Ning Chen arrived. The phoenix also chased after him. The scene in front of him was shocking. The fire phoenix seemed to have sensed it. The flames around its body soared into the sky. In the next moment, an extremely vicious phoenix cry rang out. The flames of hatred that had been separated for tens of thousands of years erupted in an instant, shaking the heaven and earth. Ning Chen immediately dodged. He did not want to be implicated by the angry phoenix's flames of hatred. He retreated to the side. The fire phoenix rushed towards the immortal pool. Flames swept out, wanting to break the seal that had suppressed it for tens of thousands of years. Under the immortal pool, the fire phoenix felt the familiar aura outside. It also cried out and struggled fiercely. "Bastard, how dare you act so impudently in the immortal hall?" Right at this moment, the gate of the immortal hall opened. A figure in flowing armor appeared. He took a step forward and pressed down with his palm. With a boom, the fire phoenix was slammed to the ground. The shrill phoenix cry pierced through people's hearts. The fire phoenix flapped its wings and rushed towards the immortal pool again. However, the three disasters were unshakable. The fire phoenix could not take even half a step forward. Only its mournful phoenix cry resounded in the sky. It was unbearable. Although the phoenix was strong, its bloodline inheritance had been depleted a long time ago. It could barely contend against the three disasters. Above the immortal pool, the fog gradually returned to normal, covering the pool water. The phoenix cry also became weaker. The fire phoenix was abnormally anxious. It rushed forward again and again, but it was blocked again and again. Soon, midnight was about to pass. The fog had already covered most of the immortal pool. The fire phoenix looked towards the silhouette in the distance. It cried out several times. It was somewhat desolate and somewhat pleading. It no longer had the dignity and pride it had in the past. Ning Chen fell silent. Leave or fight? He quickly weighed the pros and cons in his mind. Leaving now might be the best choice. With the Disaster King holding down the Fire Phoenix, he could safely leave. If he fought and chose to help the Fire Phoenix, he would have to face a three disasters expert. With his current strength, this was not a wise choice. Logically speaking, he should leave immediately. He should not be influenced by his emotions. This was what he had always done. But this time, for the first time, his feet didn't listen to him. One of their wings suddenly shook, and a drop of golden blood flew out from between their eyebrows, quickly entering Ning Chen's heart. The drop of blood entered his heart, and in an instant, a surge of unparalleled power surged through his limbs and bones. His injured body instantly recovered to its original state. After losing this drop of golden blood, the phoenix's phoenix eyes clearly dimmed. It was abnormally tired. The other phoenix circled around Ning Chen. A crimson, crystalline feather fell from its tail and landed in Ning Chen's hand. 10 drops of blood floated in the air along with the phoenix feather, emitting a powerful energy. After the gift was given, the two phoenixes cried out again. They spread their wings and flew into the sky, never looking back. Ning Chen watched the two phoenixes leave. He lowered his head to look at the scarlet phoenix feather in his hand. A trace of confusion flashed through his eyes. What was the use of this thing? Unable to figure it out, Ning Chen stopped thinking about it. With a wave of his hand, he put away the phoenix blood and prepared to leave. He could finally complete the task given by the old earth craftsman. Most importantly, he could make the Calamity King and Long Life Hall lose the phoenix that had been suppressed for tens of thousands of years. This was his biggest gain. Ning Chen moved and rushed towards the southwest. He needed to hurry to Xianling Pavilion and take back the blazing sun iron. Otherwise, once Long Life Hall made a move, it would be very troublesome for him to do anything. At this moment, on the road ahead, the void swirled. A beautiful green figure appeared, standing in the air. A faint smile appeared on her beautiful face. Looking at the beautiful figure in front of him, Ning Chen's eyes flashed with vigilance. He smiled and said, "Worryless, what a coincidence. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first." After speaking, Ning Chen circled around her and hurriedly left. "Young master, can you give Worryless a drop of phoenix blood?" Worryless' figure vanished, and when she reappeared, she was blocking his path. Her smile was still as gentle as before, and her tone was one of negotiation without the slightest threat. "Ha, Miss Worryless, I also don't have any phoenix blood. Right now, I'm just worrying about how to report back to my superiors." Ning Chen laughed as he lied without batting an eyelid. He didn't have any phoenix blood, and he also didn't have his life. He had spent so much effort and almost been killed by the Phoenix and the Calamity King to obtain just a few drops of Phoenix blood. How could he give it away? If it was wild, Changsun, Qingning, Mingyue, Gue Nu, Sr. Thinking about it, Ning Chen's heart began to pound. How could there be so many people? Would 10 drops of Phoenix blood be enough? Young master, if you don't give it to me, I'll take it myself. Worryless smiled. Ning Chen became even more vigilant. The little boy was also awakened. His little face was full of nervousness as he prayed that Big Brother Ning was safe and sound. The battle between innate stage experts was earth-shattering. Even though they were high up in the sky, they still brought about an incomparably heavy pressure. Many citizens woke up from their dreams and looked at the two figures in the air. Their faces were filled with fear. Mom, are the immortals fighting again? The little boy who didn't know anything about the world asked with sleepy eyes. Yes. The little boy's mother held her son tightly in her arms. Her trembling body could not hide the fear in her heart. She knew very well that this was not an immortal, but a legendary innate master who could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground. In the sky, Ning Chen was sweating profusely as he fought against Xian Yang. His sword was covered in frost, and he was fighting against the Xian grade venerables of the Holy Land. A sword forged by a craftsman is only a so-so, sneered Xian Yang. Ning Chen ignored him. His sword moved quickly, and his sword seemed to split the heavens. Xian Yang immediately felt the pressure increase. The flame qi on his saber increased by 30%. His figure rapidly flashed, and he fought with speed until the sky lost its color. His illusory figure flickered in and out of existence, making it harder for people to see him clearly. The battle became more and more intense. Xian Yang found it difficult to gain the upper hand. His expression also became grave. This person was much stronger than he had imagined. He was not far from the third tribulation. What he didn't know was that after Ning Chen had broken through to the innate stage, he had directly reached the peak of the second tribulation. He also didn't know that in the divine continent, there had once been a woman who had broken through to the innate stage with 3 tribulations. That woman was called Fan Lingyue. Her talent was unparalleled, and she had single-handedly reversed the situation of the world. She was the true number 1 person under the heavens. No one knew if they were the frog at the bottom of the well who had never seen the heavens above the heavens. Expert, you're worthy of me using my full strength. Seeing that the battle was going on for a long time, Xian Yang raised his saber. Waves of fire soared into the sky, and the surrounding 300 meters became a world of fire. Seeing this, Ning Chen's sword condensed into frost, and snow filled the sky. With a single sword dance, the world turned into ice and snow. Saber and sword clashed, ice and fire collided, and a fierce wind roared. Both of their mouths turned red at the same time. Heavenly scroll, unparalleled under the heavens. Ning Chen didn't retreat. Instead, he advanced. Blue light rose around his body, and his sword momentum was like Mount Tai. He slashed down without any regrets, and the heavenly craftsman's sword broke. Blood dyed the sky. The penetrating sword intent forcefully destroyed half of Xian Yang's body. The powerful vitality of an innate stage expert saved his life, but he was powerless to attack again. He fell from the sky. Ning Chen didn't bother with the half-crippled Xian Yang anymore. His figure flashed, and he returned to the earthly craftsman manner, handing the package to the earthly craftsman. If you don't remove the roots, they'll grow again when the spring wind blows, the earthly craftsman reminded. Ha! Ning Chen smiled faintly and said, his cultivation has been crippled by more than half. He can't fight anymore. If I add another strike, I'll be letting down the elders of my family. If he still has the ability to take revenge in the future, I'll be waiting. As long as you don't regret it. The earthly craftsman didn't try to persuade him anymore. He took the package and said softly. Senior earthly craftsman, My identity has been exposed. I have to leave. Thank you for taking care of me these days. I'll remember it in my heart. Ning Chen respectfully bowed. Go. Be careful in the future. The earthly craftsman didn't ask him to stay. Big brother Ning. The little boy called out. His eyes were filled with reluctance. The feelings of children were always the most sincere, without any other emotions mixed in. Little you, be good. Cultivate well in the future. Ning Chen patted the little boy's head and reminded him. Then he turned and left. After 2 steps, his figure faded away. Master, will Big Brother Ning come back in the future? The little boy raised his head, tears in his eyes. Yes. The earthly craftsman nodded. The little boy believed him. He wiped his tears and cracked a smile that was uglier than crying. 2 days later, the Palace of Eternal Life's bounty order was spread across the world. Every major sect and power knew that a young Xiantian had appeared in the Four Extremities realm, destroying the 10,000 years of foundation of the Palace of Eternal Life and releasing the phoenix that was suppressed under the Longevity Pond. However, the Longevity Hall's reputation in the Four Extremities wasn't very good to begin with. Many people even cheered inside when they heard this news. However, 2 days later, another piece of news shook everyone's hearts. They were no longer able to sit back and watch the joke. The Four Extremities Holy Lands had sent out an order to hunt down this young Xiantian expert. If he resisted, he would be killed without mercy. The reason was extremely shocking. This Xiantian expert was a spy sent by another realm. His goal was to one day invade the Four Extremities Holy Lands. There was also a 3-calamity expert with him. That was the person who had fought with the Disaster King in the southwest. The Four Extremities Holy Lands released some information about the Divine Prefecture of the East, including the fact that there were at least 4 3-calamity experts and dozens of venerables. I will visit another day. After saying that, Ning Chen walked past the little maid and left. Actually, on one hand, he'd come to the Southern Territory for the sake of searching for Senior and a man's tracks, and the other objective was to make a trip to the Jiang clan in the Southern Territory. He realized that the moves in the Scroll of Heaven and Scroll of Earth each had a move. If he used the sword, there would always be a sense of inconsistency. This was also what he felt when he was fighting the innate expert from the Heavenly Craftsman Manor. There was an ancient aristocratic family in the southern border, the Tianqin family of generals. They had forged sabers for generations, used sabers, and were experts in sabers. This was a good opportunity for him to verify whether his intuition was correct. However, before that, he had to raise his cultivation to the 9th grade. Only then would it be easier for him to enter the Jiang family. In this world, it was still strength that was respected. Apart from the innate stage that stood at the very top, those at the 9th stage of Heaven's Reach were already rare experts. If he wanted to enter the Jiang family, raising his cultivation to the 9th grade was the best choice. Ning Chen had also thought of swallowing 2 drops of phoenix blood and directly breaking through to the 9th grade. However, he quickly dispelled this idea. He could no longer rely on external objects to raise his cultivation. Otherwise, it would cause his foundation to be unstable, and it would be too late for regrets. Before going to the Jiang family, he had to stabilize his foundation as much as possible. He had to consolidate the cultivation that had been rapidly increasing these days. As for when he would enter the 9th grade, he would just let nature take its course. Tianqin City was located in the southeast of the southern border. According to legend, there was a star that fell from the sky and smashed into the ancient city. The former emperor of the dynasty took this as an auspicious omen and changed the name of the city to Tianqin, which had lasted for thousands of years. The current Tianqin city was under the jurisdiction of the Hulei dynasty. However, it was located at the furthest border, so the imperial power did not have much effect. Ning Chen did not know that Meng Xuanji was in Mingguang City not far from him. The two of them were only separated by a city. For an innate expert, she was basically right in front of him. Tianqin City's territory was very vast. It was surrounded by a continuous mountain range. Further away, it was a polar region that no one dared to set foot in. After a few days of learning, Ning Chen found that the Jiang family's reputation in Tianqin City was not low. It even surpassed the Hule dynasty's Tianqin City lord. The commoners did not know the Tianqin City lord's name, but they all knew the name of the Jiang family's head. Absolute innate talent in combat was something that could not be exchanged with any cultivation method or experience. The blade light flashed past with a sharp snow-white light. A strand of black hair fell. Ning Chen took half a step back and clamped the blade with two of his fingers. He took advantage of the momentum and knocked the girl's wrist with the green ink sword in his right hand. Jiang Xian's hand went numb and she unconsciously loosened her grip. "Let's stop here." Ning Chen handed the blade over and said calmly. However, this method was easier said than done. Opening the Dantian Qi Si for a person without any martial talent was more difficult than letting a normal person directly step into the 5th grade natal stage. Ning Chen squinted his eyes and raised his fingers. Snowflakes started to swirl around him as he channeled his power into Jiang Jianxin's sea of qi. What followed was the rapid loss of his true qi. Only a fraction of his true qi remained. A pained expression appeared on Jiang Xian's face, but she gritted her teeth and persevered, unwilling to let out a single groan. Time passed bit by bit. Finally, Jiang Xian's dantian began to emit a faint glow of Xinqi. It was so faint that it was almost undetectable if one did not pay close attention to it. Ning Chen used up a lot of energy. His face gradually turned pale, showing signs of exhaustion. Even though he was in the Khanate stage and could use the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to continuously replenish his true qi, his cultivation had yet to fully recover. There was a limit to the speed at which his body could recover. Such an intense consumption of true qi was truly a little unbearable. Moreover, opening the Dantian Qi Si for someone, especially someone without any martial talent, was not something a human could do. If not for the peerless foundation forged by the Life Scroll and the Heaven and Earth Scrolls, he would probably be lying on the ground by now. Fan Lingyue, don't forget to return this favor to me in your next life. Ning Chen shouted in his heart. Waves surged around him as he forcefully absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into his body, converting it with his own body before channeling it into Jiang Xian's body. However, it was actually that simple to exceed the limit to absorb spiritual energy. Within Ning Chen's sea of qi, waves of energy surged and battered his body continuously. The next moment, drops of blood flowed out from the corners of his mouth, quietly dripping onto the ground. A suppressed groan was heard, followed by a terrifying pain. The vortex in Jiang Xian's body quickly condensed, forming a silver vortex. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ning Chen flipped his left palm. The red light of the phoenix blood bloomed and poured into Jiang Xian's sea of qi, instantly dyeing it into a dazzling blood-red color. The silver vortex and the phoenix blood quickly combined and then grew rapidly. Ning Chen did not want to improve his state of mind too quickly and affect his future cultivation, so he quickly sealed the power of the phoenix blood. After doing all this, Ning Chen stopped. Suddenly, he staggered and almost fell down. He barely managed to stabilize his body and laughed bitterly in his heart. He had suffered a huge loss this time. This was the first time he had done such a losing business. It was really not in line with his character. In his Dantian Qi Si, there were almost no more 3 vortices left. The surrounding aura was even more chaotic. Ning Chen calmed himself down and circulated the life scroll. Silver light lit up in his dantian, quickly calming down the true qi that was running all over his body. Jiang Xian had not woken up yet, but the aura around him was gradually stabilizing. There were also faint signs of a breakthrough. It would not be long before he could enter the 2nd grade of the acquired stage. A day later, beside the cliff and waterfall, Jiang Xian was working hard to cultivate the quiet moon technique. Ning Chen watched from the side and guided her wholeheartedly, passing down this once invincible technique on behalf of Fan Lingyue. Master, what kind of person is Master? In her free time, Jiang Xian sat beside Ning Chen and asked curiously. Ning Chen corrected her a few times to no avail for this strange form of address. He did not care anymore and let Jiang Xian call him whatever she wanted. She is the smartest person in the world, Ning Chen replied. Smarter than Master? Jiang Xian asked. Ha! Ning Chen laughed softly and then nodded. Among the smartest people in the world, first it was Fan Lingyue, then it was the rest of the people in the world. He was no exception. Jiang Xian was still a little girl after all. Hearing that her master was so powerful, she could not help but yearn for her. Cultivate well. Do not disgrace your master's name, Ning Chen said softly. Yes. Jiang Xian nodded vigorously. After resting for a while, she stood up again and continued to cultivate. Days passed. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the leaves in the forest had fallen. Ning Chen carefully taught Jiang Xian by her side for almost 2 months. Jiang Xian went from having no experience in martial arts to being at the peak of the 2nd grade of the acquired stage. The quiet moon technique was indeed an almost invincible technique. At the same level, when Ning Chen was teaching Jiang Xian moves, it was not so easy for him to win. As she stepped onto the path of martial arts, Jiang Xian's blade technique was also rapidly improving these days. Between the blade light, it was beginning to show its brilliance. Ning Chen looked at Jiang Xian's blade that was moving faster and faster. His eyes constantly reflected every move and every style. After images were reflected in his eyes as he quickly deduced in his mind. The distinction between blade and sword became clearer and clearer. Lend me your blade for a while. As he spoke, Ning Chen walked out of the blade light step by step. His left hand clenched, and the willow wind in Jiang Xian's hand immediately flew out and into his hand. The willow wind was as light as a willow, so light that one could not even feel its weight. Ning Chen's body spun. His blade was fast and heavy. The blue light around him was as dazzling as the 9 heavens. The blade that followed Jiang Xian's will had no restrictions. It moved as it pleased. Her plain clothes fluttered in the blade light. White light shone, rising next to the waterfall on the cliff. It was very weak, but it represented the inheritance of martial arts. Ning Chen and Fan Lingyue, from the moment they met until the last moment of their lives, had suppressed all of their emotions. There was only their standpoint and calculations, and nothing else. But in the end, they were still the only confidants in their lives. Putting aside their standpoint, they were perhaps the ones who wished the best for the other. Just like how Fan Lingyue entrusted everything to Ning Chen before he left, Ning Chen also hoped that Fan Lingyue's martial arts could be passed down in the most perfect way. Chapter 245. The southern border was vast and boundless. Ning Chen walked past city after city, looking for Ah Man and Prince Yen. 3 months had passed. In the southern border, there were fewer and fewer legends about the powerhouses of the 3 disasters and the little girl with a sword on her back. Ning Chen could not figure it out. 3 months ago, the 2 of them suddenly disappeared without a trace. With Senior's personality, he would not deliberately avoid anyone, and there was no need for that. He originally thought that there would at least be some new information after 3 months, but he didn't expect that there would still be no news this time. On the other side, Meng Xuanji had also searched more than half of southern border but to no avail. When the 2 of them were at their closest, the distance between them was less than a city. In the end, they still brushed past each other and went their separate ways. To the east of the 4 extremes, the Hall of Eternal Life made a move again. The Disaster King, Yu Yangtian, Xing Yun, and Bu Yu walked out. They crossed more than half of their cultivation level and joined hands to force their way to the Nine Heavens mountain. They wanted to borrow the golden feather drake by force. The terrifying aura that came together shook the entire Taishan peak. Yu Yang Tian, Xing Yun, and Bu Yu were all experts of the third tribulation. Every one of them was stronger than Venerable Sword and the others. With the addition of a Three Disasters realm existence, Nine Heavens Mountain, which had lost Meng Xuanji, was almost powerless to resist. Surrounded by powerful enemies, the Nine Firmaments sect master could only pass on Meng Xuanji's words to the Disaster King. On the side, Yu Yang Tian and the others immediately frowned. The Disaster King did not say anything. He went straight into the depths of Taishan Peak. When he saw that the gilded feather centipede had been taken away, his face turned green. He always had a feeling that this Meng Xuanji would ruin his plans sooner or later, but he didn't expect it to come true so quickly. In this world, only the gilded feather centipede could help them open the passage between the two realms and send one person out. Now that it had been taken away by Meng Xuanji, it would be more than 10 times harder to find it again. Disaster King, you can use the safety of the entire Nine Heavens mountain to threaten Meng Xuanji into handing over the golden feather centipede, Xing Yun suggested. That's not appropriate. We've also come along this time. If we do that, it will seriously affect the Holy Land's reputation. Yu Yang Tian shook his head. Then what should we do? The Realm Master has already ordered us to obtain the golden feather centipede as soon as possible, Bu Yu said worriedly. Wait. The Disaster King's expression was gloomy. Send people to search for Meng Xuanji's whereabouts. If there's any movement, immediately report back. In the sky full of fierce light, the flame calamity slowly descended and entered the hands of the 4 extreme realm masters. Instantly, the ground couldn't withstand the terrifying pressure and cracked open. In the next moment, the 4 extreme realm masters disappeared. The weapon slashed down and appeared in the sky amidst the violent waves. The Yen Imperial Prince blocked it with one sword. With a loud boom, the ground around him crumbled. Oh! Feeling the true chi on his sword being consumed quickly, the Yen Imperial Prince turned his sword and slashed at the 4 extreme realm masters. The falling waterfall was instantly split into 2. The water below fell into the river. However, the water above was blocked by the remnant saber intent. It couldn't fall for a long time. Half a waterfall was a rare sight in the world. At that moment, it was cut by a tree branch. It was shocking. After waiting for another day, the person he was waiting for still didn't come. An ominous feeling rose in Ning Chen's heart. Could something have happened to Jiang Xan? As the only disciple who had inherited Fan Lingyue's martial path, Ning Chen was still very concerned about Jiang Xan. After realizing that something was wrong, he quickly rushed to the general's family in Heavenly Stellar City. The Heavenly Stellar General family was one of the few famous ancient families in the southern border. It had once been extremely glorious. Several peerless experts who were half a step into the Three Disasters realm had walked out of it. However, as time passed, the general's family gradually declined. In every generation, no one had surpassed the Khanate Third Tribulation. Just when everyone thought that the Heavenly Stellar General family's reputation would fall forever, the current head of the family, Jiang Hua, appeared out of nowhere. At a young age, he stepped into the Khanate Third Tribulation with absolute strength, shocking the entire southern border. No one doubted whether Jiang Hua could restore the glory of the ancestors of the general's family. Everyone was waiting to see how far this person could go. Would he bring the Heavenly Stellar General family to the same heights as the Sacred Grounds or the Longevity Hall? However, nothing was perfect. Just when everything in the general's family was developing in a good direction, Jiang Xan, who had no talent in martial arts, appeared. It was also a rare occurrence. The difference was like the difference between heaven and hell. No one could compare to Jiang Xan's hard work. However, it was impossible for people without talent to step onto the martial path. This was common knowledge. At that moment, no one would have thought that the person who shouldn't have stepped onto the martial path would have already reached the third-grade natal realm. The moment she broke through, she was noticed by the great elder of the family. He directly appeared in front of Jiang Xian and sealed her cultivation, interrogating her for the reason. Jiang Xian casually made up a reason. She never thought that she would be forced to hand over her cultivation method. This time, Jiang Xian refused to say anything no matter what. Without her master's permission, she definitely could not reveal her master's martial arts. Jiang Hua had gone out and was not in the clan, so the great elder became the head of the family. Faced with Jiang Xian's lack of understanding, he directly ordered her to be locked up and interrogated. In just 3 or 4 days, Jiang Xian, who had been tortured to the point where not a single part of her body was unharmed. Whip scars crisscrossed her body, and even her face was not spared. She looked extremely miserable. Jiang Xian clenched her teeth and refused to say anything. No matter how she was tortured, she refused to say anything. Her master had said that he would come back to see her, so he would definitely come back. He had just used his spiritual sense to scan the area, and Jiang Xian's aura was indeed there. However, at the next moment, a powerful aura blocked the way. Blade light appeared out of nowhere and came straight for his life. Ning Qin countered with a backhand strike with his beautiful saber. With a loud clang, the torrential current surged. Not far away, a rockery shattered with a loud bang and fell into the water below. Great Elder! Joy flashed through the eyes of the members of the general clan. Since the first elder had appeared, it was impossible for this audacious person to continue acting so arrogantly. You are the great elder. When Ning Qin heard this, his eyes narrowed. He was the one who had locked his heart away. Since the truth was unclear, Ning Qin didn't want to waste any more time. He moved his feet and went around the person in front of him, heading straight for Elder D. The first elder's expression turned cold. Just as he was about to stop him, he discovered that he had already passed by and disappeared. In the general clan's dungeon, Ning Qin walked over. Before the guard could approach him, he was sent flying by a wave of qi. The iron chains were fastened, and Jiang Xian's hands were bound. His body was mottled with blood, and his tattered white clothes were full of whip marks and dried blood. Master! Jiang Xian called out hoarsely when he saw the person who had come. His heart that had been holding on for a long time finally softened, and tears fell like rain. It's all right. Master is here. Ning Chen's pupils shrank, but they instantly returned to normal. He softly responded, waved his hand to break all the iron chains, then carried Jiang Xian on his back and walked out step by step. His steady steps were one step after another. Ning Chen's calmness was abnormal. However, after he walked past, the prison guard who was half lying on the ground began to tremble as if he had seen the most terrifying monster. His black hair danced in the wind. The instant he appeared on the ground, thunder rumbled in the sky. The strongest killing intent condensed in the sky and turned into a huge rock. Its ferocious aura soared into the sky. Crack! Dark clouds covered the sky, and the sky suddenly darkened. Thunder rumbled in the sky, illuminating the terrifyingly calm youth below. All of you deserve to die. Those were the calmest words, but they contained an unquestionable coldness. Having lost his calm, Ning Qin returned to his most emotionless self. His killing intent was like a berserk mist that shook heaven and earth. That oppressive and terrifying aura made everyone present feel as if they had fallen into an icy cavern. They were so terrified that they couldn't breathe. In the next instant, the white-clothed figure moved. A beautiful blade swept out, and the first elder bore the brunt of the attack. The blade fell, blood flew, and an arm was cut off. Chapter 248. The battle of the general family had attracted the attention of the Xiantian masters in Heavenly Stellar City. There were 3 masters in different clothes. One of them was the Heavenly Stellar City Lord and the other 2 were his guests. They came from different sects in the southern region. What an amazing battle! One of the men in blue and white clothes said in shock. Jia, he's still a little kid. He's too arrogant. The old man next to him laughed. In the middle, the Heavenly Stellar City Lord did not say anything. He watched the battle and his heart was also not calm. Whether it was the young man who fought like a god or the head of the general family, they had both surpassed ordinary Xiantian masters. They had reached a height that was difficult to reach. I'll go down and take a look. The old man smiled and flew towards the general family. The Heavenly Stellar City Lord frowned. He wanted to stop the old man but he did not say anything. He just let the old man fly down. In the general family, the old man grabbed a person and asked, "What happened? Why did that young man come to the general family?" The person who was caught was scared out of his wits. He stuttered and told the old man what had happened. The old man tossed the person in his hand to the side and looked towards Jiang Xian in the distance. A glint of light flashed through his gloomy eyes. So it was her, the shame of the Jiang clan that everyone knew. In the general family, the battle was still going on. The 3 strongest people danced on the ground. It was a battle of cultivation, sword intent and saber skills. One was the pride of the Holy Land and the other was the invincible master of the general family. In the blink of an eye, the sword and saber continued to collide. Ning Chen's cultivation had reached the peak. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth revolved around his body. The white figure was getting stronger and stronger. He was constantly absorbing the saber intent of the Holy Land successor. His saber was getting faster and faster. Duan Fengchen felt the pressure increase. He had mastered the saber intent of the general family and the Holy Land's moves. His understanding of the saber was improving at an extremely fast speed. The battle was getting more and more intense. The figure who fought like a god had a higher understanding of the saber. He used his saber and sword at the same time and pushed away 2 people. In a flash, the saber and sword were exchanged. The plain white figure disappeared, and the yen saber in her hand flashed with a brilliant color. The saber intent of the yen saber made Hua Dun feel a terrifying pressure. It was on a completely different level, and it was as if he had been reborn. The figure that disappeared in a flash reappeared on the other side. The sword light was resplendent and stronger than before, suppressing the rainbow saber. The bloody light filled the sky. Shuang Cheng retreated with a strange expression on his face. Seeing that his opponent was getting stronger and stronger, his saber turned into 1,000 different forms as he unleashed his ultimate moves. When the blood maple appeared, the surging saber intent mixed with the maple leaves filling the sky. It turned into the world and charged at the white figure before him. On the other side, Jiang Hua's blade condensed a moon. A brilliant moonlight fell, dazzling and blinding. Heaven's scroll, unparalleled in the world. Ning Chen's figure quickly turned and flew up. The beautiful saber in his hand turned into endless saber will that scattered in all directions. In an instant, the beautiful saber light was like a rapid current that scattered in all directions. When the heaven scroll appeared again, its might was completely different. The 2's ultimate moves were instantly nullified. They were brushed by the dancing saber light and were forced to retreat several steps. Jiang Hua and Luan Fengchen both had blood dripping from the corners of their mouths. In the clash of their ultimate moves, they had actually lost by half a step. However, the 2 of them were both heavenly geniuses of their generation. They had fought countless battles in their lives, so the difference of half a move didn't hinder their battle intent. Ning Chen's expression was exceptionally cold. He swung his saber and sword, each of them facing the other 2. There was no more burden, no more restraint. There was only the coldest saber and sword, a merciless ending that would decide the outcome of the battle. In this peak battle, the sparks from the clash of sabers and swords and the bloody light that spilled out faintly appeared in everyone's eyes. They couldn't see it clearly, but it was still so cold and dazzling. Just at this moment, an elderly figure appeared beside Jiang Xian in the distance. He flipped his palm and condensed qi before pressing it against Jiang Xian's head. He indifferently said, "Young man, do you think that with this palm of mine, she will still be alive?" His threatening voice resounded through the entire area. The expressions of the general family's people changed slightly. Even Jiang Hua frowned, revealing an unhappy expression. Martial artists all had their own pride. This method was truly too despicable. The despicable method instantly took effect. Ning Chen's attack stopped, and in an instant, blood flew out from his back. "You're courting death!" Ning Chen shouted angrily with his cold eyebrows. In the dazzling light of blue and dark yellow, he put his sword and saber together and dashed out quickly. Jiang Hua and Wan Fengchen were the first to bear the brunt. The moment they blocked with their sabers, their arms shook and blood gushed out. Heaven and earth resonate, life and death defying fate. The saber and sword left their hands and turned into two streams of light, one blue and one yellow. They attracted the power of heaven and earth, and saber light and sword intent descended. Heaven and earth twin scrolls, the only move that could be cultivated at the same time. In an instant, heaven and earth collapsed. A large area of space and earth couldn't bear the huge force and collapsed violently. It was like the end of the world. The hunchbacked old man didn't have time to react before the saber light and sword intent rushed into his body. In an instant, there was a shocking explosion, and blood and bones filled the sky. Su Yi flashed and waved her hand to disperse the blood and bones. She took Jiang Xian and turned into a stream of light and flew away. Ning Chen appeared in front of the cliff and waterfall. He put down Jiang Xian and stabbed his saber and sword into the ground. He turned his palm and condensed qi, quickly healing her. Frost surged, shattering the seal within Xian's body with a bang. Under the effects of the life scroll and phoenix blood, the whip wounds all over her body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Pieces of scabs fell off, gradually restoring her original appearance. Not long after, Jiang Xian opened her eyes and looked at the unfamiliar yet familiar young figure in front of her. Her eyes were filled with tears, longing, excitement, and endless grievances. "Master!" She threw herself at him and sobbed. In the end, she was only a 16 or 17-year-old girl. Not only had she been ridiculed on a daily basis, but she had also suffered such an unforeseen event this time. How could she bear it? Ning Chen patted her back and comforted her for a while. Then, he said softly, "All right, you're a big girl now. You can't always be like a child. Master, can I follow you in the future?" Jiang Xian asked while sobbing. Ning Chen hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. Jiang Xian would not return to the general family. Now that she had no one to rely on, she could only follow him. It just so happened that during this period of time, he wanted to give Jiang Xian as much power to protect herself as possible to prevent the tragedy from happening again. "How's your master's cultivation technique?" Ning Chen thought for a moment and asked. Jiang Xian reluctantly left her master's embrace and nodded. "I've been working hard on it. I'll show it to you once." After saying that, Jiang Xian walked to the spacious area in front of the waterfall. With a flip of her hand, a sparkling white light vaguely appeared. Ning Chen waved his hand and the yen saber flew out and landed in Jiang Xian's hand. He said calmly, "Attack me. Let me see your progress." Jiang Xian's expression turned serious when she heard that. The yen saber in her hand flashed with a flash of light, approaching 3 inches from Ning Chen's heart. Clang! Jiang Xian put 2 fingers on the saber and immediately took advantage of the momentum. 6 out of 10 of the saber's sharpness disappeared, leaving only 4. Jiang Xian flipped the saber again and shook off Jiang Xian's fingers. A strange look flashed across Ning Chen's eyes. Not a bad reaction. Jiang Xian leaned slightly to the side, and the saber's light slashed past her heart in the nick of time. Compared to before, she was 2 inches closer. The snowflakes scattered and condensed into a pure white saber. Ning Chen held it with his left hand and did not move from his spot. He swung the saber and slashed down. With a clang, the snowy saber's sharpness quickly disappeared in the sparkling white light. At the same time, the yen saber met the attack and blocked the remaining momentum. In the next moment, the yen saber turned sharp again, and the cold light was dazzling. Since he had seen what he wanted to see, Ning Chen flicked his finger and deflected the saber's light. He said calmly, "All right, you don't have to continue. That's enough." Jiang Xian immediately put away the saber in her hand and stood in front of him nervously, waiting for her master's judgment. Not bad. Ning Chen was not stingy with his exaggerations. After he finished speaking, he changed the topic and continued, "However, if you want to improve faster, you have to experience more battles. From tomorrow onwards, I'll take you to various sects to challenge them. Don't disappoint me and your master." "Yes." Jiang Xian nodded. She was nervous and uneasy. This was the first time she was going on a long journey, and she had to face various sections. It would be a lie to say that she was not nervous. "Let's go. This place is no longer safe. Someone will come looking for us soon." After he finished speaking, Ning Chen turned around and walked towards the west. Jiang Xian immediately followed. Not long after, the two of them disappeared into the dense forest. The sun set and the moon rose. Soon, it was the cycle of the moon setting and the sun rising again. On Celestial Forest Mountain, Ning Chen changed his appearance and brought Jiang Xian to the first destination of this trip. Celestial Forest Mountain was a powerful sect with a second tribulation innate expert overseeing it. When they sensed the two of them appearing out of thin air, they immediately appeared to deal with them. Ning Chen's goal was very simple. Celestial Forest Mountain had a rank 4 disciple to fight with Jiang Xian. Celestial Forest Mountain's innate expert sensed the powerful aura of the young man in front of him. He did not want to offend him easily, so he agreed and chose a direct disciple to compete with the person brought by the latter. A rank 4 against a rank 3. It seemed like a battle without any suspense. However, under the glamorous blade and the sparkling white light, Jiang Xian quickly fell into a disadvantageous position. In less than a quarter of an hour, Jiang Xian was defeated. Jiang Xian had almost no actual combat experience. Even though her combat strength was absolutely suppressed, she still suffered some injuries. This fully revealed the shortcomings of a beginner martial artist. For the remaining 2 days, Ning Chen did not bring Jiang Xian to other places to challenge. Instead, he let the latter digest the gains of this battle by herself. 2 days later, the two of them appeared again. This time, they changed to another large sect and continued their journey of challenge. This time, Jiang Xian's battle was even more difficult. Her opponent was at the peak of the rank 4 and was about to step into the rank 5. The difference in cultivation almost caused her to lose several times. In the end, she barely won by a hair's breadth and ended this intense battle. It took 3 days for her to recover. 3 days later, the two of them walked out and embarked on the journey of challenge again. In the following 2 to 3 months, Ning Chen brought Jiang Xian to and fro. They constantly challenged various large sects and fully displayed Jiang Xian's talent for battle. Following that, the latter's cultivation rose rapidly. Soon, she reached the peak of the rank 4. The natural chasm between the rank 4 and the rank 5 was the first hurdle in the acquired realm. Many people were stuck at this point for their entire lives, unable to advance even an inch. However, Jiang Xian had a rank 3 innate expert by her side to teach her. She also cultivated the invincible quiet moon technique. It was only a matter of time before she stepped into the rank 5. After challenging the large sects in Nanjiang, Ning Chen brought Jiang Xian to the west. Once they were done in the west, they headed north. Very soon, the news of a young innate ranker bringing a little girl to challenge all over the place spread like wildfire. Compared to Jiang Xian, who has just stepped onto the martial path, being able to advance the strength of the general family is more important. Although Great Elder's method is a bit radical, it is pardonable. The fourth elder also pleaded for leniency. After the two elders expressed their opinions, the other elders also began to plead for leniency for Great Elder. From their point of view, Great Elder's method was not too wrong. As for attracting the experts of the alien realm in the end, it was purely an accident. It was something that no one had expected. Jiang Hua quietly looked at the elders below him pleading for leniency for Great Elder. His expression did not change. After a long time, he waved his hand and said, "All right, I have already made up my mind. There is no need to say anything more. As for Jiang Xian's matter, no one can interfere. I will settle it myself." Hearing the master's unquestionable tone, the elders nodded helplessly and respectfully agreed. Half a day later, Jiang Hua went to the sword tomb. He immediately left the general family and rushed towards the northern region. In the four extreme holy lands, in the paradise on earth where the four extremes were like spring, a blood-red figure slowly walked back. His long red hair fluttered in the wind, and every step he took was steady. Everyone who saw him knelt down respectfully. "Welcome back, Saint." The powerful Xiantian experts lowered their noble heads and respectfully welcomed the return of the four extremes holy land. "Rise." Wan Feng walked over and immediately walked towards the highest palace in the distance. Rumble, the palace's doors opened and Wan Fengchen walked in. A dignified voice rang out, "You're willing to come back?" "I came back because I want to know the truth," said Luan Fengchen seriously. "What truth?" Multicolored light condensed within the palace and the master of the four extremes indifferently walked out. "Are they really from another world? Also, is the matter of the eastern region's divine prefecture invading the four extremes holy land true?" asked Luan Fengchen. "You suspect that the holy land is lying?" asked the master of the four extremes holy land. "I want to hear it from you personally," said Luan Fengchen. "It's absolutely true," said the master of the four extremes holy land. "I'll trust you one more time. I will bring him back to the holy land." After saying that, Luan Fengchen turned and walked out of the palace. "I've already sent the disaster king to do that," reminded the master of the four extremes holy land. Luan Fengchen paused for a moment and then left without looking back. In a corner of the Holy Land, there was an evaluation platform made of huge stone. A long and narrow bloodlight blade was stabbed into the stone. Luan Fengchen walked over and grabbed the blade's hilt. Immediately, a dazzling red light rose around him. "Ha!" Shao Chen shouted, and thunder roared through his body. "I would like to ask Senior Earthly Craftsman to take care of Jiangxin for a period of time," Ning Chen requested. The little boy looked at Ning Chen, then looked at his master. He ran up in a few steps and pleaded, "Master, just agree. Don't you still need someone to play the bellows?" The earthly craftsman knocked the little boy's head and said unhappily, "You have everything. All right, if she stays, then she stays. The earthly craftsman manner doesn't lack food for her." Hearing this, Ning Chen glanced at Jiangxin beside him and said softly, "Why aren't you thanking Senior Earthly Craftsman?" "Thank you, Senior Earthly Craftsman." Although Jiangxin was reluctant, she still nodded sensibly and went forward to bow. Only then did Ning Chen relax. He rubbed the little girl's hair and said, "After a period of time, Master will come back to pick you up." In the days that I'm away, you have to learn well from senior earthly craftsmen and cultivate hard. Don't be lazy. These slightly long-winded words made Jiangxin's nose sour. Tears kept rolling in her eyes. Only her master would say these words to her. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.